Hey guys, Ron here, and for almost a year now, I've been running these fan contests where I design some Pokemon and have my viewers submit what they believe their evolved form should look like. I pick my top 50 out of hundreds of submissions and crown the winners as the official evolved forms for my Fakemon. My talented viewers evolved regular old Pokemon, legendary Pokemon, starter Pokemon, and now it's time to give them pseudo-legendary Pokemon. I'm talking about Pokemon like Dratini, Beldum, or Dreepy, and my viewers have to evolve them into powerhouses with base stat totals of 600, like Dragonite, Metagross, or Dragapult. There were around 1,000 submissions this time, so that means that if these following artists didn't get to the top spots, the highest place in the contest, regardless they are already exceptional, because I chose these 50 out of hundreds of submissions. Any critique I give these entries is meant to be closure for the artists, since they earned some advice for working so hard. So if I say, oh, this Fakemon could have been higher placed if their proportions were better, that doesn't mean we knocked off points for that specific reason during the judging process, but rather it's just meant to be a helpful critique after the fact, so that you guys know what would help for next time. Designing a Fakemon is like making a dish. It's all about balance. If I were to judge two desserts, I could say one is too sweet. That doesn't mean I don't like sugar, but rather that I want the right balance of sweetness. So it wouldn't be inconsistent judging to say that another dessert is not sweet enough. So applying it to this contest, that means that if I say one Pokemon has too much detail, for example, that doesn't mean I don't want to see a lot of detail on a Pokemon. And if I say another design doesn't have enough detail, that doesn't contradict the previous statement. It just means I want a right balance of details. And to make sure we have a bunch of different artistic perspectives, I once again brought together a panel of artist judges to help narrow down these winners and give extra judge prizes. So if you want to see more of these, please leave a like and subscribe, and consider becoming a member on YouTube by clicking the join button or becoming a patron on Patreon to support these huge projects. And most importantly, make sure to check out the previous contests if you haven't. Now let's see the first of our two pseudo-legendary Pokemon. This is Bruntame, a pure dragon-type Pokemon. It's loosely based on the Tarrasque, a dragon from French mythology that has a lion-like head, 6 feet, a serpent tail, turtle shell, poison breath, and oftentimes a human face. In many depictions, it looks very similar to a manticore too, but I turned it into such a vague baby dragon so that all the artists could interpret it as they wish, I guess. It could turn into any dragon you can think of. While I'm actually quite impressed with the artists who figured out the origin, considering how I made sure it wasn't obvious, they don't really get any extra points for guessing the origin, correctly. I mean, many saw the mythical Chinese turtle dragon in my design, so I can't blame them for finding all sorts of inspirations. What matters is that you made a believable Pokemon design, and more specifically, something that looks like a pseudo-legendary. This group of powerful Pokemon like Garchomp and Kommo-o can be more complex or intimidating than the average Pokemon, but they can't be as complicated as actual legendaries, so finding the right balance is always key. I know a lot of people saw Bowser in this little guy, and I get it. I noticed it too, but that was a trick. You can turn it into a fire-breathing turtle like the King Koopa, but you can't hand in literal Bowser. Before moving on to the top 50, here are some honorable mentions that almost made the list, but are still impressive and deserve some spotlight. Brush with Death's Darafon looks really good, but diverges heavily from my Pokemon. I love the middle stage, but in these kinds of challenges, you gotta maintain enough of the base that I gave you, unless you're blowing my mind. Matisock's Pokemon honestly kinda should have been on the list. It slipped through the cracks because it was submitted relatively late, but in reality this does deserve at least to be in the top 30. If it amounts to anything, I have literally no complaints, so I would have been saying the exact same thing if it was, let's say, number 29. It's an amazing submission. Arthonier by Kenmon5 has a great concept and the design has a lot of potential, but it needs to be fleshed out a bit more or be showcased in a style that makes it feel more complete. Kirigal by Kels X Art is very well drawn and a good Pokemon on its own, but the middle stage is too similar to the final evolution, which, while it nails the Keelan aspect, could push one of the elements like the horn or collar a bit more to feel more breathtaking. This line by Fern Prince looks really good. I always loved this style, and that middle stage is right up my alley, but this looks nothing like what I gave you to evolve. I'm Uncreative has one of my favorite art styles. The middle stage would fit in with a lot of the ones in the top 50, but the final evolution is a bit underwhelming. Could use some more bulk. This entire line by the Red Hatter could totally be in the top 50, and I love the Tarrasque element. It's a bit too close to what it's supposed to be based on without doing anything more than the inspiration, while Astral Mutt's design is a bit too much. This is a fantastic design, but needs to be completely refined if it were to be entered into a Pokemon making competition. I love it, but let's try making it fit the design philosophies of Pokemon next time. Blobby Fakemon's line is good. Like, it's simply far too simple and doesn't do anything too exciting with what I gave you, but on its own, I wouldn't mind if Titanium was an actual Pokemon. From too simple to too complicated, there are too many elements in Below Froze designs. It looks great though, and you could easily discard some elements to create a top 30 worthy submission. Very close. And good lore too. And finally, Base Rider submitted fantastic characters, but the art style that was chosen unfortunately makes them look too much like they'd fit in another franchise. You don't have to match Pokemon's art style for this challenge, but you kind of have to make sure that it doesn't look too much like it would be in another. In this case, a fantasy cartoon from the 20th century. But let's finally see what actually made it to the list. With number 50, Gazotao. Their line is super solid. There's nothing blatantly wrong with it. I guess some others simply took more risks that paid off with a similar concept. Number 49, Toasty Being Dumb. This is an example of a good risk because I like the concept of a goblin-esque line, and the middle stage is a fantastic transition with great personality, but the final evolution could be redesigned to look a bit more appealing and dynamic. Great submission. Number 48, Rani Katanik. The actual design of the final evolution is pretty good. I just think it was characterized as a bit too feral and animalistic to feel like a proper Pokemon. Unfortunately, the middle stage looks like a separate, unrelated final evolution, and if you've noticed, while the final evolution is a priority, the middle stage is very much part of the judging process and helps make us make placement decisions. Number 47, G. Renaris. The first of many middle stages with a similar concept. Actually, both of these are very good design-wise and conceptually, but the final evolution falls under the classic too many details problem. A bit more streamlining, and it could be a top 35 submission. Number 46, Waffles 143. Now, this is one of the most unique concepts and designs in the top 50. If the artist kept on refining it, I'm sure it would be in a higher place. Very creative. Number 45, Bruntle and Bruntagon. The artist nailed the art style, proportions, and amount of detail a Pokemon should have, but the final evolution, despite being a perfect Pokemon, looks more like a middle stage, with far more potential. And the middle stage looks like it was stopped mid-evolution. Very impressive though. Number 44, Connection. Love the design of the middle stage, and the final evolution does look fun and badass, but the concept simply isn't my favorite. Number 43, Blook, Official 94. Now we're about to see a quartet of Knight-inspired designs. These two are a great first draft, but if the artist worked on the line art and rendering a bit more, so the design was a bit less flat, this could reach new heights. Number 42, Mike Purdy Tattoo. Super cool details, but a bit awkward. Would love to see this reworked, because clearly the artist has skills. Number 41, Buggy Juice. Love the lance arms and general stance, very well designed, but the perspective on the face needs a bit more work, and so does the middle stage. Ultimately, one of my faves in terms of potential. Number 40, Indigo Blackbird. I'm a fan of the colors, and the design is definitely up my alley, but again, personality is a big deal, and the face is giving a bit of Arceus, especially with the quadrupedal shiny. On its own, this is fantastic, but for this challenge, it's simply not what we're looking for, I guess. Number 39, MIDI PokeArts. I mean, these are so well rendered, and technically the progression is amazing and the amount of details are just right. But this is just Bowser. We're looking for a far more original design. Number 38, Skluter. I love these two in theory, because going the furry dragon route makes sense with the tuft of hair I set up, but other than a hairy dragon that kinda abandons most of the other elements I gave my Pokemon, there isn't too much going for it. As a Pokemon unrelated to mine, I do like it though. Number 37, HMG Fakemon. A respectable submission. The middle stage is pretty rad, but it kinda overshadows its final evolution, which honestly is just a taller version of the Prevo, conceptually. We always want to see each Pokemon in the line having its own identity, instead of each evolved form being an older version of the previous. Number 36, Kaida Creator. Definitely a smart integration of the Therizinosaurus with a Tarask. It could be fleshed out more though. Nothing objectively wrong, just needs a bit more time to cook, I guess. Number 35, Pacifida region. Now this is a neat concept, albeit a Pokemon named after Bakugan is a bit on the nose. I love the final evolution. The judges did find the perspective on the shell a bit confusing, which I totally see in the middle stage, but as a first draft, this is perfect. Could be refined to be top 10 material even. Number 34, C. Sanchez Create. We all loved the look and personality of these, although the beak did become extremely odd in the final evolution. Toning down some of the elements because there is a bit much to look at, and reconstructing the face would help finalize this Pokemon a lot. Number 33, Willicato. We were very impressed with how much these two looked like real Pokemon. Unfortunately, that was a bit tainted when we noticed how much of Zoroark the final evolution mimics. It's still a great mon, and the middle stage is perfect. Love the shapes. Number 32, Ghosty Tart. Love the Lucky Dragon and general Chinese inspiration. The artist definitely has the mind of a great Fakemon artist, but the rendering needs a bit work so that it's a bit easier to read. But we were definitely impressed by the shading on the coins. I would love to see this redesigned as Ghosty Tart grows their skill. Number 31, Mayor Migglesby. Very distinguished. Love the gluttonous king root. The concept is great and the art style is appealing. I can't tell the artist to stop giving us these great illustrations, but considering this is a contest, this line would have a better chance being in the top 20 if the art style was a bit more intricate. This could be fun art of a more complicated looking mon though. Number 30, Ink to Paper. That middle stage is delightful. Amazing shapes and a great evolved form to my Pokemon, but while I love the final evolution on its own, it diverges too much from my mon, and honestly looks nothing like a pseudo-legendary. It looks more like a mythical or legendary, which perhaps is what the artist intended given the base stat total. Number 29, Wild Ranger AB. These two are very neat. I always dig the serpent direction, but unfortunately the artist didn't give me enough of a description for me to be impressed by any concept. It just looks like a good Pokemon but doesn't blow me away. Similar situation to number 28, Procelian. These two are flawless Fakemon designs, but relatively generic kaiju, at least visually. It doesn't mean they're uninteresting. I love the punk aesthetic, but they don't surprise me, you know? Mostly because I already know that the artist is fantastic. Number 27, Aries Sheep. This artist is always surprising. I'm totally down for the risks taken, because the colors are rad and the middle stage is beautiful, but the final evolution needs to be refined a tiny bit. It's a little complicated, especially in the face area. If Aries Sheep has the time, I'd love to see a more streamlined second pass. Number 26, Chaos Streak. This is super cool, and it was a smart idea showing us the middle stage in an alternate configuration. The iron sand is perfectly conveyed, and the shapes are fun to look at. All it needs is the removal of a few minor details so that it's a bit less cluttered, and this could enter the top 15. But even with these minor critiques, it's already a great Fakemon I'd love to use. Now it's time for the top 25. Pretty much all of the following are already top tier Fakemon, and any critique is relatively more nitpicky. Number 25. French Teapot. This is a genuinely good entry. The middle stage is perfect and could contend with the middle stages in the top 10, and while I've grown to love the final evolution, especially with that sick concept art, it takes a lot of time to read with all those different elements that could totally be streamlined. Ultimately, still amazing as is. Number 24. Dancing Buttface. These are straight up fire Fakemon. I love both of them, but they're basically unfinished. Some parts feel empty and it's basically still in the sketch phase. If they manage to give it, actual line art and shading and info, like a name, this could be in the top 10, because the artist nailed the Pokemon design philosophy. Number 23. Waffler Art. These two are perfect as pieces of art, but obviously these are a bit too stylized for Pokemon art contest. But I see the vision, and if it were drawn in Sugimori style, I'm sure it would be a great pseudo-legendary. Number 22, Ardith Dudith. These two are honestly flawless, design-wise. They do give starter Pokemon energy though, and the judges did believe that toning down the shadows would make Golisland a bit easier to read, but ultimately, they're a treat to see. Number 21, Patricio. We all love Broblin, but that kind of means it overshadowed the evolved form, who has great shapes and a cool concept, but a confusing expression with a face that is a bit far removed from Bruntamed. Great potential for a redesign. Top 20, here we go! Number 20, Flat Wormadon. Everyone who saw this found it super interesting and well drawn. It's a fantastic character design, and while it's a bit too mismatched, it makes sense for the Basilisk concept. The middle stage is one of the best too, but honestly, it was too outlandish for the judges to really take it, a little bit more seriously. I think one of them found the Ladybug chicken wing to be mind-blowingly odd. Number 19, Reprezi. Again, one of the few who went in the mammal direction, which I appreciate, and still kept the shell in some way, which is also necessary if you're gonna completely change the vibe. But the middle stage, while cool, doesn't really bridge the gap enough for such a drastic change. Ultimately, perfect Fakemon on their own though. Number 18, Eden A. Draw. I mean, the final evolution is a very well-designed Fakemon, although it takes a bit too much inspiration from existing dragons like Excalibur, but that could be a coincidence. Can't complain, but the middle stage falls under the trap of looking like a final Evo too. This reads as a split evolution situation. Number 17, Arthur Ross 88. One of the best Tarask designs today. Honestly, the final evolution is top 10 worthy, but while the face makes total sense, it's not the most appealing, and the middle stage needs a bit more work. I'd personally say making it cuter would help, put this in the top 10, but that's subjective. In the end, these are some of the most creative in the entire video, and could be number 1 if there wasn't such tough competition. Number 16. 67 Chrome. While at first glance, this line looks like it diverges heavily from Bruntame, but once I inspected it, pretty much every single element of Bruntame is used and expanded upon to create a very cool cosmic turtle Fakemon. While this is a perfect line with a good middle stage and cool final evo, ultimately the pose and expression of Bright Even hurts it a bit, since it's hard to tell what its face is like with its eyes closed, but as a Fakemon, this is perfect. Number 15. Canute Art. These are also wonderful submissions with tons of personality and great proportions. The artist clearly knows how to design a Pokemon with the sensibilities of Game Freak. If this looked a bit less like a starter and more like a pseudo, this could be in the top 5, but I honestly may regret that decision because I generally think on its own, Chastigan would be one of my favorite Pokemon, but that's mostly because it hits all of my personal tastes, while it wasn't any of the judges' favorites. Number 14. Cinnobon Fakemon. The shapes of this Prevo are exactly what makes for a distinguishable Pokemon. The way the artist expanded on the color scheme and the patterns of my Pokemon is super well done. Toning down some of the details would help it feel less complicated, but that's just a nitpick. A super cool Fakemon. Number 13. Curiart. Valilot is incredibly cool. I love to see this in game. Super striking with the right amount of details. I think the judges were a bit disappointed it diverged so heavily from my mon's species, but that doesn't make it look less cool. The real critique is that while the lore makes sense, the middle stage does not, get us ready for such a drastic change, despite many of our submissions having a cocoon stage. If the Evo had a more discernible expression with perhaps a mouth, this would be in the top 10. Number 12. Spatial Monsters. Tortimera is kind of the most epic submission on this list. The calendar on its back with a, Dialga mural is such a good idea for a legendary Pokemon. For a pseudo-legendary, I may disagree with the concept, but for what they were going for, the artist nailed it. The middle stage is also a perfect example of a good transition while having its own identity. Number 11. Josue Isaac Peter. Without a doubt, the best traditionally drawn submission. The way the artist turned my dragon into a knight by using the elements that I set up was very clever. Imagine how high this would be if it were, fully rendered with all the bells and whistles. Kinda no flaw design-wise. Top 10 time. I'd be happy if any of the following were the official evolved forms of my Bruntame. Number 10. Rob. I mean, it's super simple, but if we were to get a reserved, almost like Gen 1 style evolution of Bruntame, this is kind of perfect. It's the best of the generic submissions. I'm not saying that in a bad way, because that's actually very impressive to make something that isn't, too wild conceptually stand out. Super well designed for what it's meant to be. Number 9. Zenith District, our first winner of a judge's prize. Sterninator was surprised by how much he loved these. We were blown away with this submission. Definitely the best of the ones that opted for a box turtle with a structure on their shell. Pagodra feels like a pseudo-legendary without a doubt. It's got the right amount of detail while still being intricate. The middle stage is great too, but I do wish it was slightly more similar to my Mon. Just a nitpick, because this is truly amazing. Number 8. Trainer Rex. I love how beautiful the shell became as it evolved here, incorporating the French origins perfectly while making something that would believably be in a medieval bestiary. It's a bit hard to read at first with so many elements, but I can't complain. It's magnificent. I don't know if you noticed, but many of the submissions, including this one, gave their shinies the color palette of Bowser. Very cute. Number 7. D3V3. Definitely the best of the Bowser looking submissions, because it obviously has a lot of other great inspirations. Once again, a design that feels exactly like a pseudo-legendary, with the artist absolutely mastering the Pokemon art style. The middle stage perfectly transitions Bruntame into Blazoros. Dude's a bit over the top, but I can't blame it. At the end of the day, this felt incredibly natural, so I think Josh knew exactly what he was doing. Number 6. Mysticalite. Definitely the best of the grass type submissions. If the grass felt a little less random in the middle stage, this would enter the top 5. We absolutely love how the shell looks like it's made of plant, and the personality that oozes from the design is palpable. I can't find anything to complain about in the final evolution. Number 5, here we go! Kelpcheap. Another banger by Kelpcheap, and the winner of Harry Gold's Judge's Prize. I literally cannot find a flaw. The colors are beautiful and contrast well with the white bones. This is exactly what we hoped for when producing this contest. While it takes inspiration from Dry Bowser, the artist made sure to creatively expand on it. If I were a betting man, I'd bet this would be a fan favorite pseudo. Number 4. Justin Boulay. Pointy Hat's favorite, and I can see why. Dude kinda succeeded in doing what many submissions were trying to perfect. This is how you combine all of these European man-faced lion dragons with a snapping turtle to create a Pokemon that feels like it's more powerful than the rest. The color choices, the amount of details, the personality, the silhouettes, the progression, all there. If you want to know what a perfect submission looks like, it's this. But the following three were perfect while also being slightly beyond what we'd hope for. Number 3. Ethics 77. The winner of the Curious Chaos Judges Prize. We all love how refreshingly pretty Eldaroon was. Super feminine without needing to be, anthropomorphically human. So regal and beautiful while looking like it could mess us up with its stare. Also a clever way of giving us a super pretty poison type. I guess this is how you do it. Eldaroon and Brunzerk are flawless Fakemon, and while I get the reasoning of the middle stage to be more, feral looking, the judges felt like it felt detached from the final Evo. If the middle stage was a slightly better transition, a number 1 spot could have been a reality. Number 2. Yokaiju. It received the True Green 7 and Tubbs AZ Judges Prize. Why? Because when we first saw this, we thought to ourselves that this is exactly what Bruntame would turn into. It's without a doubt the best at taking everything I set up and expanding it. It looks the most like a pseudo-legendary, it honestly looks the most like a Pokemon in general, and very much executes what we look for in these challenges perfectly. Even the middle stage is literally perfect, like I couldn't ask for a better transition, while still being cool on its own, with a ton of personality. Ultimately, the judging process to find the number 1 spot for Bruntame was the longest and hardest out of any Pokemon in the series. We had to have debates and polls among the judges for multiple days to narrow it down, because at the end of the day, we'd all be happy with this at number 1. We had to nitpick like crazy in order to make a decision, and ultimately it came down to the busy silhouette. It was tougher to quickly read this mon, while the actual first place popped out immediately. But let me actually get into why the first place entry won, so you can finally understand. Number 1. Jess the Dex, with Irricade and Rebelong. Winner of Mr. Bonnie John's Judges Prize. While Titarask was a perfect Fakemon, it wasn't exactly to everybody's taste, while every single judge couldn't deny how cool Rebelong was. The number 2 spot was ever so slightly better when it came to designing a Pokemon for this challenge, but Rebelong is without a doubt the coolest Fakemon in this video, and probably the best piece of art too. We all loved the shading and art style. It was probably the reason it won. That and the pose. Like, both the number 1 and 2 entries were perfect, but the extra aura that just the Dex gave their render had us head over heels. And don't get me started on how beautifully drawn the middle stage is. Rebelong reminded us of a Lionel from Breath of the Wild, which could be thought of as the pseudo-legendary of that game. So having the same aura made it feel like it should win the number 1 spot and become what Bruntame was always meant to be. Congrats, Jess the Dex, you impressed us so much. I could stare at this art all day. Now let us move on to the unconventional pseudo-legendary. Metagross is still the only non-dragon pseudo-legendary, and I think we need another. Here's Trilobrite. Only the truest of fans recognize him. It's actually based on the Trilobite beetle. I gave it a head akin to a tricorn hat, so it does look a bit 18th century, and those yellow markings do glow. Once again, you don't need to continue this exact concept, but finding a way to incorporate the design elements will be key. While pseudos can look more menacing than the average Pokemon, a trap that many submissions fell into was making their design too scary, which was exacerbated by all the creepy bug elements. It's all about balance, baby. Before diving into our top 50, here are some honorable mentions that almost made the cut. They all have something to love regardless. King Dago Galaxy's line was pretty much number 51. I like the shapes a lot. It's a strong submission that simply had to go against tougher competition. Same with Gazetao's line. I mean, I think the lack of expression backfired a bit, and the poses are a bit undefined here, but the designs are still pretty good. If those two were in a cool action pose and had some kind of emotion in their face, they'd hit the top 40. Trainer Rex is a fantastic artist, so I'm kind of confused how they didn't notice this design is a little too monstrous for a Pokemon. Even Garchomp, the most fearsome looking pseudo, is a bit toned down compared to something like this, but as a design on its own, it's incredible. Who Won Lan One's design is very well drawn and clearly Clearly they have the talent and skill, but this is incredibly hard to read. If I were going to give one tip to a lot of these artists, it would be to make sure that the judges and I can easily tell what we're looking at as quickly as possible. I can totally understand Averugo's design and I like what I'm seeing, but they look nothing like my design or any pseudo-legendary Pokemon. But I very much appreciate the concept, and the art style that Waffler Art employs is very fun. These two are fantastically designed, but while the middle stage could have made it into the list, the fully evolved form is a bit too robotic looking and over-designed to warrant a placement. Sick art though, but let's see what made the list. Number 50, Brush with Death. Two very well made designs with great shading and aura, but this is a bit too scary and complicated. Even powerful non-legendary Pokemon like Hydreigon or Baxcalibur have elements to make them feel like lovable partner Pokemon, while this is a straight up horror alien. A good one though, that admittedly looks like an evolved form to my Mon. Number 49, Base Rider. On the other hand, while this design is imposing and super epic, honestly, it's a bit of a stretch from where it started. I like it as a Pokemon on its own, but it's a bit too mechanical for the liking of my judges. But we applaud the sense of scale. It triggers my megalophobia and thalassophobia, but that's a good thing, because this piece of art made me feel intense feelings. Number 48. Just a Husk. I mean, the pixel art is really well done, and I totally see how you got here from my Mon, but that's just too many sticks of dynamite, my dog. Like, sheesh, tone it down a bit and we could bump this up to the top 30. But there is no doubt that this is great art, and I hope they continue submitting for these contests, because the artist knows what they're doing when it comes to pixel art. And also, thanks for recreating Trilobrite in this style. Number 47. Mayor Migglesby. The art style is great, and the concept is definitely in line with what I want to see for Trilobrite, but honestly, it wasn't as successful at conveying its various clever origins as I hoped it would, which doesn't mean it backfired. It's still a great design, just needs a tiny bit more work to showcase all the neat traits in a second pass. Number 46, Sarge and In Charge. We all loved the middle stage, one of the best in the entire video honestly, because it's so charming, makes sense as an evolved form from my Prevo, and has a lot of potential. But the jump to the final evolution abandons a bit too much, although I love the consistent ghost light in the eye. That's clever. Ultimately, there were far more natural ways to evolve Trilobrite into a pirate, and this one looks nothing like a bug. If this was a Pokemon separate from my design, this would be very successful. Number 45. Ethics 77, our first entry that includes a little Trilobrite in the design, akin to, Dragapult. I dig it, and the concept art showcasing the siphon cannon retracting is very well done. I love the tidbit of this Pokemon happily being responsible for the extinction of Dragapult. I think we didn't place it higher simply because, while we like the cannon direction, the way it was executed wasn't in a way that cleverly utilizes elements that I established with Trilobrite. Like, the final evolution kind of vaguely looks related, but it's still a cool mon. Number 44. James 111. I love the UFO drone route. The middle stage is a bit messy, and the final stage looks a bit too much like Trilobrite, but the shapes are memorable, and it looks kind of menacing with those floating Trilobrite around. Like, it's a fantastic concept, and technically it was executed well. I mean, the light streaks at the end looking like bristles on the abdomen of an arthropod is very clever, but later entries are more clever, and slick with it too. Number 43. Doodle Squish. A mighty fine submission. It's a cool Pokemon and makes total sense. The hat does look stylish, as well as the bright patterns, but the harpoon is a bit awkward looking, and honestly, there was a lot of competition when it came to a pirate concept. I mean, check out number 42, Imposter Ivy. Love the early gen Sugimori style, and this is a great interpretation of a pirate Trilobrite evolution. I honestly can't really point to a major flaw. It really just showcases the same point that you'll see in some later killer pirate evos. This is great, but others interpret the same concept in ways I didn't know I wanted. Love the name Triloblite though. Number 41. Oscar Reviews. This is pretty sick, and the face is actually really good. Totally something Pokemon would do, but the patterns and effects kinda complicate the design. A refined version of this would hit the top 25. Number 40. Arthur Russ 88. Many went in the vehicle route, and I love how unique this one is, without going too overboard. The concept art at the bottom is super entertaining, and clearly the artist planned this out very well. Again, always gotta commend a middle stage that is a good transition while having its own concept. I guess when going in this kind of mechanical direction, you really gotta find the sweet spot that prevents it from looking like a machine and not an animal, and to some judges, it looked a little too robotic instead of, like a creature. Number 39. Thorn 22. I can always respect a Super Sentai evolution. It's executed and drawn very well. There could be more that could be done for it to feel natural, because right now it just looks like a superhero with the color scheme of my Pokemon, but inherently that's a cool thing to see. Number 38. Tarot Ghost. Now we have a Voltron Gurren Lagann version of mine. Like again, This looks sick, and on its own, I can appreciate it 100%, but it just seems like you had your own thing you wanted to do without really considering what Trilobrite really is supposed to become or be. I mean, the middle stage is even cuter and diminutive than Trilobrite, which doesn't make it seem like an evolved form for my Pokemon. Super neat for what you were trying to do though. Number 37. Pose art? Now all the judges and I could totally acknowledge how mesmerizing this is. I mean, the colors are satisfying and the shapes are bold, but it's too busy and ends up being super hard to understand what it's trying to convey. Like, it's supposed to have a top hat and monocle and be this British gentleman, but we couldn't have noticed that if you didn't give us concept art and a description. Honestly, not much needs to be changed though to make it work. It's super close to being in the top 25. Number 36. CX Artist. I love this unique cocoon stage in the middle. You have a real mastery of 3D shapes and perspective. The dynamic pose of the Evo is impressive, but the design just wasn't hitting for all the judges. It came off as too edgy, I guess, but that's super subjective. There's honestly no major flaw design, just no concept we could latch onto. Number 35. Scruffy Paws. We were all entertained by this, because these two are super endearing characters. The artist knows what they were doing when it comes to making a compelling Goon and Kingpin, but these two look nothing like Pokemon. A bit too anthropomorphic. A treat to see though. Number 34. Mary. The Alice in Wonderland inspiration is totally accepted and appreciated. It's one of the most fun submissions so far, and I'm glad it still looks like a Trilobrite Evo. Unfortunately, we thought that the final evolution simply looked like a form change of the middle stage, and some streamlining wouldn't hurt. I'd love to see another try at this, because it's worth a look. Number 33. Spirit Box. We like the swagger and the silhouette of this monster, but its body shape is a bit undefined. It's a serpent dragon with each segment feeling a bit unrelated to the last, but you got something cool going on here, and I love the art itself. The gold accents are also a very nice touch, and a good expansion of the patterns that I gave Trilobrite. Number 32. Connection. I personally put this higher than the other judges wanted it to be, because I thought the shape and angle of the final evolution was imposing and truly memorable. A good way of making a UFO-inspired Evo that still looks like a natural creature and not mechanical, and the name progression from bright to smart to intelligent is to die for. But I can see why the judges were confused by how my Mon became this manta ray crab and couldn't really understand the exact face of this creature. But I'm glad I saw it. Number 31. Zimli. We could all appreciate the actual talent of this artist, because there was literally nothing wrong design-wise. We just felt that this was a bit too feral and animalistic. It felt like a creature found in ancient times, which was kind of the point, but it felt more like a real, animal, as opposed to a Pokemon. Something more endearing added to the final evolution, like a smile, some kind of anthropomorphic feature really, would have put this in the top 20. Number 30. FCZG486. Really like the progression that the hat and eyes underwent, and the way the yellow lines on Trilobrite became these glowing accents was very cool, but the judges wanted a bit more in terms of concept. If it's supposed to be a beacon like a lighthouse, perhaps a singular, more memorable glowing feature on the body, instead of just general lit up patterns, may be the way to go. Just spitballing. Number 29. Skluter. We love the middle stage, the shapes are super slick, and honestly, dude has some mega aura, but that means he kinda overshadows the final Evo, whose pose and angle ain't too memorable. Honestly, reposing it to give it some swag and giving it, some kind of memorable feature like perhaps an even bigger tail could help. I believe in you, dude. Number 28. Sekna. Dude looks powerful and intimidating while still keeping this goofy, shrimp-inspired body shape, which honestly is exactly the design philosophy of Game Freak. So, it's a successful Fakemon design, but it didn't necessarily blow away the judges. Nobody had a problem with it, which is super hard to do, so respect. Number 27. Coral. I'ma say it, these are very well designed Fakemon with cool concept and actual ideas as to how they work in the Pokemon world. But while the middle stage ain't a bad transition, the final Evo looks nothing like my Mon. One of the submissions where the design is rad, but it feels like the artist had their own separate idea and tried their best to fit it into this contest somehow. Honestly, just take out, Trilobrite from this image and just promote this as a two-stage line that has nothing to do with mine, and it'll be beloved. It's too sick to be associated with my measly little design. Number 26. Hallow Grave Art. These two are good submissions with strong shapes, but maybe too solid for their own good. Some additional concept or memorable feature would help it enter the top 20. I totally think that the artist could manage to pull off a banger if they, made minor tweaks. Number 25. LA Thursday. Now this is one of the most unique submissions. I mean, the middle stage is perfect and could easily be in the top 10, but the final evolution is a bit too wild, while also not being wild enough. The idea of an electric steed is crazy cool, but the vague horse shape could be designed a bit better, and the actual Pokemon on top is simply not as well designed as the middle stage. But we applaud the gall and the chutzpah for even going with this idea. It would be an honor to redesign this to make it work, but I don't have the time, so please give it another go, LA Thursday. Number 24, Rina Shuren. This Fakemon has some of the best attributes in any submission, with some other elements that need refinement. The coattail cape is sublime, super well done shape that adds to the silhouette. The hat is great too, but the axe hand may be a bit overkill because it competes with the shell shield a bit, despite it still being a well-designed axe. Honestly, a slightly better pose with the head down would alleviate this substantially, and I love the idea of this line fighting against the Dragon Pseudo line. Number 23. Do the Ruler. We all love this interpretation of the common UFO concept. Epic shapes that make it look imposing, help give a sense of scale, and the colors are very memorable, although perhaps a bit conflicting. We just think that the vehicles you'll see later were a bit more clever, but this is still very much a contender. Entertaining as heck. Number 22. Neon Arts. Fantastic submission with the perfect proportions, shapes, and amount of details, but the stance may be a bit too humanoid. Not a huge problem. The middle stage is well designed, while the ghost type makes total sense given the inspirations. It doesn't come across as too ghostly. At the end of the day, there were simply later entries that did the exact same thing slightly better, but I can confidently say that this hat shape on Trilobrian is probably my favorite. Number 21. Kenmon 05. Now, every single judge was impressed with how the artist managed to make some of the absolute best Fakemon designs in this challenge in such a minimal style. The aura of both of these evolutions is actually very much present, and the progression is definitely there. Dude nailed pretty much everything when it comes to designing a Pokemon, but the art style may still be too under-detailed for us to fully understand the potential. Like it could be a perfect separate graphic to have after already seeing what these look like in an art style that is close to Pokemon's. Number 20, Curiart. Winner of our first judge's prize, because Mr. Bonnie John loves this thing as much as I did. I mean, goddamn, are we all still not over a koi coin? What a clever way of making a middle stage cocoon with its own identity that makes total sense within the line, considering the pirate direction. The final stage has a fantastic silhouette and menacing aura, definitely worthy of our top 20. If some of the superfluous elements like various spikes were smoothed out, and perhaps a few of the segments deleted, we could see this in the top 15. Number 19. Just the Dex. Look at me, I'm just the Dex. I'm super talented and know how to draw better than everybody here. We get it, these are fantastic designs and are shaded better than anything I've ever seen. On its own, this could be a beloved legendary, but every single judge agrees that despite the middle stage kinda transitioning the two very well, this final evolution looks nothing like my Pokemon. No element remained or was left unabstracted. I do want to poke those eyes though. Number 18. Indigo Blackbird. These are some mighty fine designs you got here. The middle stage is kind of perfect for what you were going for, and I have zero complaints. And in theory, this final evolution could exist without, any debate. But we would have loved to see a more similar hat to the previous forms, and a bit less patterns. Perhaps one less color if we're being nitpicky. 8.5 out of 10 though. Totally our vibe. Number 17. Wild Ranger AB. The middle stage, despite looking a bit too much like Clauncher, is super complete, with a sick stance and silhouette, but the final stage, while a great Pokemon on its own, is kind of the Prevo, but bigger. No substantial new concept was introduced, unless I'm wrong. It also could be the final Evo for some other shrimp Pokemon, because the elements that were kept aren't unique to my Trilobite. I feel like the most distinct traits of my Fakemon were abandoned. So great Fakemon, but not a perfect Evo to my Pokemon. On the other hand, Number 16. Mod Maniac. Dude, that final evolution is exceedingly cool. You found a clever way to expand on every element in a way that most others didn't do. It definitely deserves a more dynamic pose, not because it's necessary, but more so that it can rise above the competition, and the middle stage is weirdly underdeveloped, but hey, you cooked with Argonites. Number 15. Extensionally defined. These are gnarly. We love what you did here. The middle stage is a bit messy, but we can understand the intent. Especially with all that well-made concept art, the final evolution would make for such a unique pseudo-legendary, while still feeling like it would fit the group. Just the right amount of terrifying while still being a potential silly and loyal partner. Starting the top 15 strong and showcasing how all of the following are now like 9 out of 10s. Number 14. Austral Art. Okay, this is very close to what I expected to see. The middle stage is a unique cocoon that becomes a monstrous pseudo-legendary that still has all of the existing attributes but reconfigured. That's how you're supposed to do it, if you want to go on this route. Of course, you can do something different, but it has to be convincing. This is the most successful at playing it safe. If there was something extra, this could have been in the top 5. Number 13. Quasar Arts. And this is how you turn my Pokemon into a jet. It looks supernatural, honestly flawless. Love the tail streak of light and the progressively more complex but still well-balanced evolution line. Any critique would be a nitpick. It's all up to personal preference of the judges and, small embellishments that help the other entries rise to the top 12. Number 12. Dancing Buttface. Once again, dude submits 2 flawless designs without any info and just dips. The curl on the hat of the middle stage and the way it sets up the Evo is beautiful, and the final evolution's proportions, amount of details, and stance are a masterclass in Fakemon design. This guy is really good at this challenge, but again, if dude put a little more effort into finishing the render and in giving us info, this could be in the top 5. Without any dex entry, this just feels a bit generic compared to the later, more interesting pirate submissions. Number 11. Ruezi. Ruzi? Connecting Pyrus and their ability to navigate using the stars was a genius way to make this guy look ethereal, spectral, and cosmic. The motion in this design is clear. The colors are also very delicious. The final Evo feels like a rare and powerful Pokemon. Good job. I'm sure if there was a bit more personality in this line, top 10 would feel appropriate. But let's finally see Trilobrite's actual top 10. Number 10. Fakemon Goes 875, winner of Crimson's Judge Prize. I mean, this one is personal for us artists and enjoyers of aesthetic. The Y2K look is a dream come true. I never knew I wanted a Y2K inspired Pokemon. You may be thinking it's a bit of a stretch, but I think it's set up geniusly. If my Pokemon is supposed to represent 18th century and the middle stage is supposed to be all steampunk like the late 19th century, then the turn of the 20th century into the 21st century is the perfect inspiration for the final evolution, and my god did they nail it. Number 9. Weeb is concerned. This is how you turn Trilobrite into both a pirate and a pirate ship. I mean, the little larva on the beard, the tail looking like the stern of a ship, the legs as oars, seaweed as a beard, it's a flawless design. Not everybody's taste, but exactly how you execute what the artist was going for. And the middle stage has some fantastic 3D shapes. Contender for the best hat in a middle stage here. Number 8. Zenith District. The shapes of this Pokemon are monumental. I could look at this for days. The judges noted it looks a bit too similar to Vikavolt, and that if the face was far less obscured, they would gladly put it in the top 5. Dude clearly showcased throughout the video that they are a master of rendering 3D rigid shapes. Super tough to do. Number 7. Valsmith 18, Sterninator's favorite pick. Taking a Pokemon based on an animal that is, named after an ancient creature and giving its evolved forms fossil fists is genius, and executing it super successfully is incredibly skilled. Love the colors of the final Evo and how natural the arms look. This is how you do unique. If the middle stage's arms felt a bit more practical, this could be in the top 3. Number 6. MIDI PokeArts. This is the entry that succeeded the most in designing the stereotypical pseudo-legendary monster I expected to see. It's just a straight up badass electric bug. It's an amalgamation of a lot of my favorite Pokemon. Why wouldn't I love it, Such a clear design too. One of the easiest to read. Take notes, all fledgling artists. This is the right balance of details and proportions with a great pose and silhouette. Let's do this. Number 5. Fish Cake Art. Easily the best design to incorporate the pirate's treasure with a hat full of gold and a striking face that I'd say perfectly evolves the face that I set up. If the middle stage had its own unique identity, this could have moved up a spot or two. Arthroplunda is a top-tier Pokemon design. I want you guys to applaud right now, even if you're watching on your phone and have to drop your phone on the ground in the process of clapping. Number 4. Spatial Monsters. This is incredibly creative. It deserves to be so high, because the execution is fun also. A scavenger that uses whale Pokemon bones as arms is clever. I love how the middle stage uses the mandibles as arms, and then the final evolution gains the entire skeleton. And then the sketches to show off how they look without the bones is priceless. Definitely worth the effort, my friend. Now let's do this. Because I'm losing my voice, can you tell? Like, if you go back to the beginning of the video, my voice is less raspy. Top 3. Number 3. French Teapot. Back at it again with their best design yet. The large shapes here shocked every judge. This is art. This is a damn memorable Fakemon. The shading is also so good, I can't stop looking at it. This is how you exaggerate body parts in a Pokemon. Our 3-part is perfect. If the middle stage was a bit more exciting, there would be a conversation about making this number 2. But that honor goes to number 2. C. Sanchez Create. At one point, this was number 1. heavily advocated for by Pointy Hat, who gave this his judge's prize. But every judge thought this was the best of the pirate submissions. The way every single part progresses down the line, especially the color, is exactly how we wanted to see. The personality of these two is unrivaled, and the final Evo's balance between anthropomorphic and animalistic is remarkable. Once again, it took so long to debate which entry should win, so we had to be extremely picky, and it simply amounted to these judges disagreeing with, like, the peg leg. Stupid stuff like that isn't really the artist's fault. We just couldn't decide because this and the next entry were so different from each other that we couldn't compare. In reality, we narrowed down the top two and simply did a poll, and the number one pick narrowly won. But I'm happy to say that the number one spot goes to Yokaiju's Triple Bite and Accelerate, the winner of the True Green 7, Tubbs AZ, and Harry Gold Judges Prize. We knew that Yokaiju was going to be in the top two for both of these categories, so we thought long and hard as to which of their two Fakemon lines was better, and we definitely thought Accelerate was too good to not crown the winner. This is the coolest Fakemon in the entire video. It's amazing. Look at this absolute unit. The middle stage is also super cute while still being a bit creepy. Did I say creepy? But guys, am I crazy? Because this is a flawless design. Someone watching doesn't like this type of Pokemon, but for what Yokaiju is trying to do, they designed their Fakemon perfectly. Nothing needs to change. The proportions, colors, angle, shading, progression, amount of details, and personality, while still stoic, is very well conveyed. I am incredibly impressed. I'm going to look at Accelerate for months to come. And if you want to see this series continue for months to come, please leave a like and subscribe. Check out all the amazing artists on their socials, and make sure you've seen all the other contest videos we've done. Consider becoming a patron or YouTube member to support these huge projects, and please make sure to follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky to know when the next contest is out, which you can also do by subscribing and going to the community tab. Bye!